That is our welcome to him, representing again this love that Spiritism brings to us as well. But for us, so we can understand, or so we get to know who Julio is in his professional life and what he does. Julio Padovan, he was born in Brazil and has been studying Spiritism since the age of 15. He holds PhD degrees in biochemistry and molecular biology from the School of Medicine of São Paulo, University of São Paulo in Brazil. Julio translates his Spiritist books from Brazilian Portuguese and French into English. And he is a member of the Spiritist group of New York, SGNY, where he is responsible for the Sunday study group. Julio is also a lecturer for Spiritism and the general sciences. Professionally, Julio holds the position of Senior Research Associate and Associate Director at the Rockefeller University in New York. So, bottom line, he likes to study. And that's a good thing. He likes to study. So, with no further ado, we'll pass the word to Julio. We would like to make this about an hour that he will be speaking. If we have any questions, let us please hold the questions so we can ask at the end. We'll give an opportunity for us in about 20 minutes or so to ask our questions, and he will be clarifying the questions, the comments that we may have. Okay? Julio, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you kindly for this invitation. It's always a pleasure to talk about Spiritism, at least for me. I really enjoy it. And today I'm going to discuss fluids, or spiritual fluids, as we call it. And we are going to actually focus particularly on the universal cosmic fluid. And hopefully at the end of this presentation, we'll be able to have a better idea of its importance and how it affects our lives, because we have a tendency to think that these are all outside our realm of our daily lives, and actually it's not. So I will not try to be perfect, because it's a long way to get there, but at least I'll try to do my best so that we can learn a little bit tonight. So the very first thing we have to think about when we talk about fluids is where did I get this information from? So as a rule, we usually put the reference at the end of a talk, not at the beginning. But I just wanted to convey the idea how complicated this topic is, how complex, how intricate it is. It is almost half of the Spirit's book and half of the Medium's book, just to give you an idea. So in essence, in chapter 14 of Genesis, Miracles and Predictions According to Spiritism, Kardec made some sort of a summary of what he spent, at least half of the time he spent in the Spirit's book and the Medium's book. But then you might ask, why is Kardec talking about fluids again in Genesis if he has, in principle, talked about this topic in the other two books of the codification? That's because here he talks about the applications, and in Genesis he talks a little bit about the concepts. So you see, we have on one hand the concept, what it is, what is important for, and on the other side, how can we put this into practice? This is how I divided the lecture as well. Well, I didn't divide it, I just plagiarized Kardec in this one, on this one, okay? So I'm going to start, of course, with the concepts, right, about fluids. And when we talk about fluids, the very first thing that comes to mind is, what is it? We think of fluids, especially if I go back, right? We think of fluids as a liquid, okay? Now, please don't get so sidetracked with the science. There will be some science here, but I promise that this is not the most important thing here for us to focus our attention, but actually how we can use this later on. So I will try to guide you through all the steps. So we think it's a liquid. Well, not necessarily liquid. So if we think about physics, for instance, mostly physics in science, we have this particular definition that it's a fluid is any substance that is capable of being deformed, that flows when there is a particular stress. So silly putty is a fluid. tar, pitch, is a fluid. Now, it may go very slowly. It may flow very, very slowly. You might not have the patience to watch it flow, but it flows. It is capable of flowing, so it's considered a fluid. And we give a special name for it called plastic solids. So fluids are not just liquids, but gases, plasmas, very hot gases, and also, as I said to you, the plastic solids like silly putty and so on. But then why do I need to learn all this? Well, because like I said, we are familiar with the concept just related to liquids in our daily lives, which say about the water, about a soda, about an orange juice, and so on. But we have all these other things. And actually, when we study this particular chapter from Kardec, he goes even further. He takes it one step ahead. He adds another thing to the concept. So now if we take the definition of fluid from the OED, the Oxford English Dictionary, it matches the scientific one. Well, it should have. But the OED brings in another one. This one. It is any substance that is subtle. All right? Imponderable. It has no mass or very little mass. All-pervading. Everywhere. It's everywhere. And whose existence is being assumed to account for a phenomenon such as heat, electricity, and magnetism. This last one is the one Kardec is using. This is why I wanted to spend a little bit, this slide, to explain to you the definition. Kardec is not just thinking about something that can be deformed, that flows. Kardec is also talking about something that we may not be able to grasp with our hands, that we may not be able to weigh on a scale, and that it's everywhere, right? So now you might be having a lot of difficulty trying to understand subtle, imponderable, all-pervading. And you might think, okay, this is something that happens way far out in the universe, only astrophysicists can understand. Well, actually, if you have $30, you can buy one. And here it is. A spinning, floating globe. You apply here on this little plate an electrical force, a field, that pushes the plate, that pushes the globe up and counteracts the force of gravity. You see that it doesn't touch the plate here? Not only does it prevents the globe from touching it, it's floating in the air, but it also makes the globe spin, right? So now, I can, if I had one of these here, I could actually put my hand here. I could go very quickly past my hand, like we do with the candles when we're kids, to show who is more courageous in the group, the most courageous in the group. You can do the same thing here, but there's no courage about this. It's just to prove the point that when you move your hand between the globe and the base, the globe doesn't fall on your hand. So there has to be something here, right, that is pervading, that's all around this globe to push it up, correct? And I cannot grasp, if I try to go there and pinch the air here, I'll be pinching air. I will not be pinching the fluid. I cannot see water there, okay? So this is a simple example. And I could go on and on and on about many different examples. But suffice to say that there's a lot that we can think of and just to fulfill the previous definition of a subtle, something that you cannot grasp so easily, imponderable, not necessarily with a lot of mass or even without mass, and that it pervades, it's all over the place. Okay. So having said that, we now move on to our study of the creation process. And where is this fluid that we are that is now so important to us? So the very first thing we need to understand when we read the five books of the codification is this. We have a creator. What is it? Here, I will apologize in advance if you feel insulted when I say it. For me, it's an it. Because if I say it's a he, I'm being sexist. If I say a she, I'm doing the same thing. If I say it's a human, I'm still putting down the creator, because the creator is much more than just a piece of its creation. so I'm going to use it. But I do this with the utmost respect. And I don't have any problems if someone prefers to call it a he or a she or any other thing, as long as there is respect to it. So we have the Creator. We don't know what it is. All we can expect from faith is that it's something that is much more than what we are. Much, much more. Then we have the creation. Now you notice that this box here cannot be inside this one, because the Creator is one thing and it's distinct from its creation. If I put this box inside this one, then the Creator is part of its creation. Makes no sense. And if I put creation inside of the Creator, then the creation is the Creator also. So then it gets very confusing. So I'm going to leave them separated. Are they joined? I don't know. It's too much for us at our level to understand. So I'll leave it with a little sliver of light between the two. Okay? But not necessarily light in the sense of light that illuminates a room or so on. Then, within the creation, we learn from the books that we have a separation between two distinct principles. We have the spiritual principle, and we have the universal cosmic fluid. Ta-da! There you have it. Our fluid. The very first one, the primordial one, the elemental one, meaning there is nothing before it. There is nothing that gives origin to it besides the Creator. So within the creation can be divided very broadly into 2 points, the spiritual principle and the universal cosmic fluid. Let's start with the universal cosmic fluid. Very quickly, we're going to go through a few things. We know how to bake a cake. We know that we start with flour, eggs, milk, or water, and so on, and sugar, right? We can bake many different types of cakes. So each cake is a different combination of the original ingredients. The problem that we have here is that we have only one ingredient. So I cannot combine them, because there is no them, there is no they. There's only one, it, the universal cosmic fluid. So that universal cosmic fluid can be manifested in different ways. Different manifestations of it lead to different principles or different other things. Later on, if you have questions, we can elaborate a little more. Right now, I decided to leave this to your imagination. The truth is, there's a lot that we still don't understand about this, right? If I knew everything about this, I would be here. So, point of principle, right? But one of the manifestations of the UCF, or universal cosmic fluid, is actually the material principle. Here, I want to make a point. Do not look at the word spiritual here and material here and divide this graph into a spiritual realm to the left and material realm to the right. That's not true. I'll explain to you later when we get to the division how we are going to do this. The point was, we have the material principle that derives from the universal cosmic fluid. And this material principle can give rise to matter in one of its manifestations, can give rise to antimatter in another, and give rise to dark matter, can give rise to energy, can give rise to dark energy. And okay, let us not be... I'm sorry? And then let us not be, too arrogant to think, yes, I already know how the universe was put together. And the interrogation mark is in one box, but it's actually the biggest box in this entire creation box, because it represents everything that we ignore to exist. So even though it's represented by one box, not to cloud the whole thing, it represents all our level of ignorance. All right? So it's there because tomorrow we may discover something and we'll put it there. And then another interrogation mark box will show up, and on and on and on. Right? Whenever we are learning, we always answer one question and we open one or two more. Good? Well, in the spiritual principle, it manifests itself into the very, very, very special thing, the very first thing. We call it a monad. It's not a spirit yet. The monad will start progressing and progressing, and eventually will become a spirit. All right? Just so we don't cloud this too much, let us eliminate the monad for now. All right? But we have to understand that we came from the monad, and the monad was the original manifestation of the spiritual principle. So we're going to have it like this, straight as if the monad weren't there. All right? Later on, we'll describe a little bit more about the monad. Monad means the elemental thing. Good? Let us do the same thing on this side. Who knows? There must be other things. Let us not be so arrogant to think that, oh yes, the spiritual principle only produces the spirit and that's it. We don't know. There's so much. Even the things that we do know, we don't know exactly how it's done. So let us do it with a lot of humility. Let us try to incorporate as much as possible. Okay? So now that we have this diagram, let us simplify it a little bit. Let us get rid of what we don't understand. And let us get rid of antimatter. Let us get rid of all the dark matter, dark energy, because quite honestly, we already have problems enough dealing with our physical bodies, which is just matter. Okay? And we are not astrophysicists here. We are not interested in understanding dark matter, dark energy, and so on. By the way, do you know where dark, from dark matter, dark energy comes from? It just means unknown. When we discovered, we did calculations and the mass did not match, did not tally. The ledger for masses in the universe did not tally, did not match up. There was mass missing. So we called what was missing dark matter. Oh, wow. The same thing for dark energy. We calculated the amount of energy and there was something missing. What was missing, the complement, was called dark energy. We know a little bit more about them, just so you know, right? But just so it's not, it gets less dark. Exactly. Very good, very important. So now I just increased the matter box here because I need to show you a few things. So matter now can manifest itself as inanimate matter. The matter that you find in a crystal, in a rock, the matter that you find, for instance, in any geological piece. Right? There is no life, it doesn't reproduce itself, it doesn't have progeny, it doesn't improve the environment around itself, and so on. The other thing that we have from the universal cosmic fluid is the vital principle. It's a different manifestation. Okay? And now I'm going to answer a question that you're already thinking about. How do you know when you're going to make this one or this one? We don't know. Simple and that. Simple as that. As simple as that. But we know there are different manifestations from what we read from the books, from what we read from all the spiritual authors that we have learned to trust, have learned to respect. The interesting thing is that if the vital principle combines with inanimate matter, like this, you see, then what happens is that when the two combine, instead of making inanimate matter, it makes animated matter. You notice that here I prefer the adjective and here I prefer the past participle, because this gives me an idea of an action, that this came from something, that two things put together. So animated matter is a combination of inanimate matter that comes from matter plus the universal plus the vital principle. And why is it important for us now to make this distinction between animated matter and inanimate matter? Very simple. Because from animated matter, we are going to create both our perispirit, or a spiritual body, and our physical body. Our physical body does not come from inanimate matter. It has to come from animated matter. And you see now where we came from? A fluid. Okay? So we flow easily through our lives, if you allow me the pun. Okay? So all that fluid through material principle matter and then animated matter came and gave us the physical body. Okay? And also through the vital principle combining with the inanimated matter to produce animated matter. And these two produce, animated matter produce these two items, our perispirit, or a spiritual body, and our physical body. Now we can divide this part here, okay? This part here is the physical realm or material realm. This part here, perispirit and spirit, is what? What we call this? The spiritual realm. Okay? But you see that even in the spiritual realm, there is what? Matter. That came from what? The fluid. So now we see that this division of spiritual realm and physical realm is basically just to help us understand our lives a little bit better. But the truth is, they start in the same what? Place with the fluid. The spirit. So I said the animated matter was very important for three things. Two of them were showed, the perispirit or spiritual body, the physical body. But the other thing is, the spirit only associates with the animated matter when it is going to create a triad that we know very well right now as our spirit, perispirit, and physical body. So when we are here on earth, and we are here as incarnate beings, we are a triad. Three. We are the spirit. The spirit represents us, correct? But we created from the spirit, we have a perispirit, and we have also a physical body. When we move back from the physical realm to the spiritual realm, we are going to lose our physical body, right? So this is what happens when we discarnate, when we go back to the spiritual realm. We still keep a piece of the universal cosmic fluid with us. We still keep a piece of matter with us. Look here. See? We see the whole thing here all the way to perispirit. This is any one of us when we pass on, when we go back to the spiritual realm. We are now a dyad, spirit, perispirit. Then we come back, we reincarnate, we get another piece of the animated matter, produce a physical body, and we are back to a triad. Then we live, 60, 70, 80 years nowadays. Eventually, we die of old age or an accident or something. We lose again the physical body, we go back to a dyad, and then we go like this a couple of times. Actually, we've been doing this for a couple of 1,000 times, all right? So I'm just going to put the third time, and that's it. We are reincarnated, 3, and now we discarnate, and we lose it. Okay? So now let's go back here. It's a simplified version of it. Okay? So again, you notice that here I kind of blended the spiritual principle into the universal cosmic fluid. So that's because we should ask ourselves, when we study, we divide them into one on this side and another on that side, correct? But we have to ask ourselves, if they were completely separated like that, how was the first interaction then? We don't know. So most likely, there is a point way, way, way behind that we don't even remember, that we are not even aware when it happened to us, where these two principles are not the same, but let's say the same, the sides of the same coin. You remove one side, you don't have a coin, right? So they are the same coin, but just different sides. So there is a continuum from one into the other. But the interesting thing about this is that you still have a manifestation as material principle, vital. The two together produce the animated matter, and then you have perispirit from the animated matter, and physical body. The spirit interacts with the animated matter, and then it produces the triad that we saw. As we evolve, and here I'm going to use you see the spirit is evolving morally and technologically, right? Because the spirit is where we have our memories, our intelligence. So I'm representing this evolvement, this progress, as a larger balloon, okay? As the spirit evolves, look what is happening to the other two guys here. Okay? Don't worry about the arrows, just so that you don't lose track of things. They are getting smaller, right? Now eventually I won't even be able to write anymore. So it's going to be per for perispirit and phys for physical body, right? And there will be a point in our evolution that we will evolve so much, that we won't need a physical body anymore. We will not need to reincarnate anymore. So we have only a spirit and a perispirit. And if we take this even further into the future, into eternity, look what's happening. Now, you notice that I kept a kind of a sliver of the color, of the color there. So to remind us that we really don't know, as far as we can tell from all the texts, even the pure spirits, the angelical beings, they keep a little bit of a perispirit. But that perispirit is extremely ethereal, imponderable. This is why I represent it just by a tint, a hue of the orangey here. See at the end? When we get to this point, we become, I like to say it, this is just to emphasize the point. I say perfected spirit. I know that we should say perfect spirit, and I'm not against the word. I like to use this one when I'm giving a talk, because since we are using the past participle as opposed to the adjective, it forces us to think that it's an action as opposed to a state, static. And the action reminds us that this came at a great cost in evolution. This is billions, who knows, trillions of years of our current years. But the point is, we'll reach this point, this stage. And when we do reach this stage, look what happens. When we reach this stage, right, we are now all the way between the Creator and its creation. We become, as André Luiz puts it in Evolution in Two Worlds, be very careful, co-creators in a minor scale. We are not God. We are not the Creator. We are not the Creator. We are co-creator, because we had to be created by the Creator. We had to have an origin. But we can create, we can, for instance, organize solar systems. We can organize nebula. So this is our point. This is what André Luiz tells us in Evolution in Two Worlds. So when we get to this point, we came from what? From these two, from the fluid and from the spiritual principle. So the universal cosmic fluid, or UCF, is primordial, elemental. It does not have any division. And it undergoes these modifications or transformations that make it either more or less ponderable, that makes it make matter or vital principle, and so on. On one end, we have the imponderable manifestation of the fluid, right? In the sense that it's ethereal form of it. And at the other end, we have the dense, the tangible form, this one that we know so well. That the one that we are always reminded when we stub our toe in a corner, when we bump our elbows in a desk, and so on. Because if it weren't that dense, we wouldn't cry, when we do that. Okay? So each one of these two extremes of manifestation belong to a realm. This is when we divide. They are both from the universal cosmic fluid. But when it's very ponderable, when it's very tangible, like matter, we say it's the material or the physical world. And sciences can deal very well with it. Any type of sciences. Any type of science. And the imponderable or the more ethereal form of it belongs to the spiritual realm as we divide it. It's our division. And then that one, we have a problem. That one is studied mostly by mediumistic phenomena. Okay? So science is very capable of analyzing the phenomena caused by the tangible manifestations, but it's very, very bad at dealing with all the spiritual phenomena. Because everything that we use to measure requires tangibility, ponderability. Right? So it requires a manifestation of the fluid that has to be compatible with the instruments that we are using to measure. If now we are measuring a phenomena that is not very tangible, and while our instruments are tangible, it's much more difficult to make the two talk to each other. Right? Another interesting thing about the universal cosmic fluid is it's more of a logical description. Didn't I say that there is a manifestation of it that becomes the vital principle, and I said that there's a manifestation of it that becomes the material principle? If you have different principles coming from the same one by different manifestations, we have to admit that it's not uniform. Because if it had been uniform, it would always be the same thing. From this, only this would come from it. But now you have two. So you can actually mold, shape that universal cosmic fluid. And this is the most important part for us Spiritists, that we can shape it. If you leave this place tonight and you forget everything about that I said, remember this one, this paragraph, that because it's not uniform, it means that we can shape it. We spirits, not we physical body. The spirit, we can shape it. Because you'll see when I get to the applications how important that is. This is a little joke. Okay, I will not go into the physics of the Heisenberg principle, but uncertainty principle is the following. Okay, if I see my laser pointer here and it's moving, the Heisenberg principle, the uncertainty principle, tells me the following. If I can see where it is, I would not be able to measure how fast it's going. And if I can calculate how fast it's going, I cannot pinpoint where it is at each time. You either get one or you get the other, but you can't get two things at the same time. Now, for all of you who drive, right, you know that that's not the case for a car, right? If you are driving and you see the red light, you know exactly where you're going to stop and how fast you're going. You can do that. Because we look at things in a macroscopic sense. This goes all the way down to the microscopic view of the universe. So a nice way of understanding the Heisenberg's uncertainty principle in plain English is you cannot have your cake and eat it too. Here's a cake. If I take a lick from the frosting, it's no longer the full cake. Now you might say, well, it's just the frosting. It doesn't matter. It's not the full cake. Either I keep the full cake or I become content in losing a piece of it, no matter how small, so that I can have a taste, or I can have a sliver, or I can have a whole section of the cake. But I cannot have the two things. Either I have the full cake, or I have less than full, and I have a piece of it, no matter how small or big the piece is. So this is basically, in plain English, the uncertainty principle. Then why is that? What does that have to do with Spiritism? Because we have a tendency to say the universe, the spirits, the spiritual realm. You notice that we always put it outside. It's like when we say the trees outside, the parking lot outside, the other building across the parking lot, and so on. It's always away. And what we need to understand is that, remember that what was one of the most important characteristics that Kardec used to define fluid? That it was an all-pervading. All-pervading means that we are immersed in it. If we are immersed in it, observer, observed, get all confused with one another. We cannot say the universe. The moment that I look at the universe, I change the universe by looking at it. Oh, how is that possible? Well, if I can see the universe, let's say if I see the moon, I had to destroy that light that came from the moon inside my eyes to be able to say that I could see the moon. So you see, I, the observer, and the moon, the observed, are tied together. I can no longer extricate, separate myself from it. We are in this fluid. We are part of it. We came from it, and we are it, or part of it, or whatever you want to describe. But observer and observed are intimately connected. For those of you who love Joana de Angelis, the psychology collection from Joana de Angelis, channeled by Divaldo Franco, she will go one step ahead and make our mind spin even faster. She will say observed, observer, and the act of observation are all they all commingle, they're all intertwined, very, very intimately associated. And why is this important for us? Again, that only thing I told you, if you leave here, the only thing I want you to remember, if you're going to forget, if you have to forget a lot, remember one thing, that you, like anybody else, you as the spirit, you have the ability as the observer to modify the observed universal cosmic fluid. Okay? So our physical senses, the senses we get from the physical world, can only attach ourselves, can only give us impressions from matter, from the crude thing. But the spirit is much more. It doesn't see with eyes, with mouth. It doesn't taste with mouth. It doesn't get the tactile sensation with hands. It is all over the perispirit or the spiritual body. So we can actually have much more sensorial input at our spiritual level. So we can actually interact with that universal cosmic fluid in a much more intense way. So then, why is this important? The manifestations of the universal cosmic fluid, like I said before, they are the observed things. So when we look at them, but then we only look at them with our physical senses, our eyes, our mouth, our sense of smell, and so on, we get just a distorted view of it, just a piece of that information, because these are crude senses. We may be very proud that we still have 20/20 vision. We may be very proud that we have a nose that can smell food, a mile away. But the truth is, they're nothing compared to what we can do at the spiritual level, right? So we get a much broader view, a much broader picture of reality, the true reality, okay? Or at least a reality perceived by us in the spiritual form, because we are more interconnected with that universal cosmic fluid. So one interesting thing is that it doesn't matter, like I said before, how many modifications and transformations we have. The principle is still the same. And they give rise both to matter and energy. The properties of matter and energy, the properties that we are familiar with, if it's solid, if it's not solid, if it's flexible, if it's not flexible, if it's hot, if it's cold, all that, they are manifestations of the cosmic fluid that we know, but they are not inherent to the UCF. The UCF is not cold. The UCF, the universal cosmic fluid, is not hot. It's not dense. It's not opaque, transparent. Manifestations of it give rise to these properties. This is very important, because this is one of the reasons why we get sick, as we are going to see later on. Okay? How we develop certain diseases, actually all diseases, because the diseases are in the spirit. The physical body may feel the effects, but we get sick at the spiritual level. So it's the same for all the ethereal forms of manifestation, not just for the physical ones. Remember that the ethereal forms are also just more more etherealized forms of the UCF, but they still come from the same thing, right? So it's pretty much the same way. It's just that to manipulate these manifestations, it's better to do in the spiritual realm. So this is the basis of all the phenomena that we read about, particularly in the André Luiz collection, Life in the Spiritual World. Everything you read there, whenever it's in the spiritual realm, whenever they're talking about that, those are manifestations of the universal cosmic fluid in the spiritual realm. Good? So we have to be careful here, and Kardec points to us many times in chapter 14, right? We should avoid referring to the more etherealized forms of matter and energy as a spiritual matter and spiritual energy. There is no such a thing. We don't say spiritual matter, spiritual energy. It's just matter and energy in a form that is not as dense, as opaque, as ponderable as we are used to. Okay? It's important for us so that we don't start dividing it and making one realm look different than the other. The two realms are manifestations, again, from what? The same thing, from the universal cosmic fluid. So now, let us look at the properties, the manifestations of this fluid. Why is it so important for us? So let us imagine that this is our line of evolution, okay? And we start here. Remember when I mentioned about the monad? This is it. When I start here, I am a monad. I have just been created. How? Only God can answer it. Only the Creator. Is it wrong to ask the question? No, absolutely not. What is not recommendable, what is bad, is for someone to become fixated with the idea of trying to answer it. Because it's like this. In New York, for instance, they have the vertical marathon, where they use the Empire State Building, and you have to go all the way up the 108 floors and then back down. Right? The one that does that first wins it. So it's a vertical one. It's by stairs. Now, without cheating, because there are no elevators in the spiritual world, in their spiritual evolution, no escalators, right? If you are on the ground floor, can you get to the 108th floor without going through the second, the third, the fourth, and so on? No. So we are somewhere in this building. I don't know which floor we are. Let's say the 10th floor, just for sake of argument, all right? It's easier also to say it. 10th floor. I cannot get to the 108th floor until I get through the 11th, the 12th, and so on. So when we can ask the question, but we need to have the have the humility to understand. We must have humility to understand that right now, before I can answer it or that I can get an answer to it, I have to get answer to other things that will lead me to that point, right? So we are monads. Somehow we weren't, and then now we are. And we are as monads. And this is hard for us to grasp, because here's the problem. Now, as monads, we are individualized. My monad is different than yours, and yours, and yours, and yours, okay? Everybody's monad here, when it started as an individualized manifestation of the spiritual principle. Okay? When that happens, you don't have intelligence. So you cannot say, I'm learning, because learning requires a certain amount of awareness. So we simply interact with matter at its most basic, or with the UCF, the universal cosmic fluid, at its most basic level. So we are not an atom. We are not a molecule. We are not a rock. And we are not a tiny little cell. We associate ourselves. From that, we learn what? The law of affinities that we read about from the Spirit's book. The law of affinities, how things are put together. But we are never the atom, the molecule, or the rock. We just learn here in a very, very crude way. We gather information from those things. And from that, we also learn equilibrium, the laws of reactivity, and so on. As we keep learning and learning, or let's say gathering information, that's better, gathering more and more information through this process, right? This is always a continuum. Don't think that it actually has a little demarcation point here. It's not that. But just for simplicity, I broke it into blocks. Then we go into organisms that have more than one cell. We associate ourselves to them at the monad level. We're still not a spirit. And we see how they get together, how they begin to live in group. It's not society, because society requires an awareness. Society has purpose. Society has a strict set of rules and so on. These are just being gathered, being put together, clumping, like bad pasta, for instance. Okay? So the pluricellular organisms here. At this level, we learn about organization. We learn about cooperation. We also learn about the very rudimentary forms of sensorial stimuli and sensorial gathering. Because for me to clump with this, I need to find that this is my partner. This is somehow similar to me. So I need to, it's a very, very crude form of what? Communication. It's chemical communication. So as we move through this process, slowly as a monad, we gather more and more information. And eventually we reach here. Here we begin spontaneous, involuntary, reflexive. Now we are talking about behavior. Then you're going to say, oh, then is there a demarcation point here? No. Again, there is a continuum over here, right? Don't get yourself attached to the words. It's just for us to be able to understand and study. Unfortunately, we have to put things in little boxes. We have to categorize, classify them. So I always tell people, okay, it's fine to put things in boxes, but leave the lids open so that when you change your mind, you can move one thing from one box and put it in another. This is very important for us so that we see that our pattern of thinking is always progressive. And eventually, we reach this point. At this level, that monad has gathered enough momentum, enough information, and this is the birth of intelligence, of reasoning, of self-awareness. At this level, not only we know we are individualized organisms of the universe, my being, whatever it is, my entity is different, individualized from you and you, but I begin my process of individuation, which is the awareness that I am individualized. It's at the next step. Here, right here between the interface, at the interface between animals and humans. And from here, we have the global awareness, the responsibility, sentience, in one word. Okay? And this is how we go. We go through the laws of affinity and reactivity. We go through the laws of signaling, of living in a community. Then we go through instinct and then intelligence, reason. Okay? And who knows what's awaiting for us at the angelic states? We don't know. All right? So one interesting thing that, like I said, is throughout this process here, we are monads. Somewhere here, we start as a spirit. You're going to say, oh, but my dog is so intelligent. Oh, my cat does things you wouldn't believe. And then people get vicious about these things. They want to defend that the animal. I never said animals are stupid. I never said that animals don't have a soul or animal. What I'm saying is that there is a gradation from all this point into that. We can definitely say we start as a monad here, and at this level here, we are spirits. So we have been evolving. It's not that we have a birthday and today I am 46 and tomorrow I'm 47, or that I'm today 10 and tomorrow I'm 11. It's not that. It's not a point. It's a continuum, all right? It's just that we accept from the readings that we gather, from the reasons we do, from the information that we gather, that here is where we begin as spirits. And from spirits, we started as the intelligent principle, a manifestation of that spiritual principle, right? And here's a question from the Spirit's book. Where do the animals draw the intelligent principle that comprises the particular kind of soul with which they are endowed? From the same principle we took it, universal intelligent element or principle, right? Then there's a follow-up question. Then the intelligence of both humans and animals emanates from the same principle? Without any doubt, yes. But one has just developed it, what? Further. That's all. All right? So this is very important because it tells us not to think of demarcation points, not to think that this is one thing, this is another. We give different names just to help us understand. But there is a what? Continuum here. Right? So once we become spirits, we are endowed with intelligence, and then we have what? Free will. And the free will comes only when we get conscience. Because otherwise, how can we be responsible for our actions if we have just the free will but not the conscience to let us know how to steer our lives? So we talk about instincts, we talk about reflexes, we talk about intelligence, all here evolving slowly. When we get to this point, we start the intelligence, the reasoning, and later sentience. With this, now that we have enough information about this universe, now that we know how to manipulate this universe as observer of the observed of the universal cosmic fluid, we start to develop the free will. There is no magic bling from a wand that tells us, now you have free will, now you have intelligence. We have been gathering it all over here, 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 here. Eventually you just reach what we call a critical mass, or a critical amount of information that allows you to say, if I put this with this, I can make something different. Okay? And once we have this point, we develop a need for what? For reincarnation. Because now if you have free will and a conscience, it means that some of your choices are not going to be, well, let's put it kindly, the most constructive ones. We all done that. We all done things that we looked and said, oh my goodness, was it me? Was it really I who did it, right? So then we need to be able to atone for it. Otherwise it would be what? A very unjust form. So the need for reincarnation comes exactly from this process here. Before there is no reincarnation. We move from one particle or an atom or one molecule or one structure or one cell to another. If I am a rock, if I am associated to a rock, I'm not a rock. If I'm associated as a monad to a rock, and that rock ceases to exist, I move on to another rock and I continue my instruction period. It's not, you don't go back to the spiritual realm and you ponder on the things you've done, because you were not analyzing anything when you were here associated to that physical realm. Here is different. When I get here, when I lose my physical body and I go back to the spiritual realm as a spirit plus spirit, I can what? Analyze my choices. So there is a point there where I have to what? Ponder, where I have to analyze. All right? Now you're going to ask me, how is this done? Okay? So how is it that we learn, and as we learn, we intensify the interactions between physical and spiritual realm? Okay? So that's the point I told you about. So let's think about it. I don't have to put the equal sign there. You've already done the math. And then you're going to say, piece of cake. No, it's not a piece of cake, because it took us 3.2 billion years to get to this. Just that, 3.2 billion. All right? So, and this is how this works. If I say to you 1 chair plus 3 chairs, you do the math, right? 4 chairs. Now, what did I say to you what would you tell me if I said to you 1 orange plus 3 bananas? 4 pieces of fruit. You move the concept further 1 step. So you go from the concept of counting, where you can grasp 1 chair, 2 chairs, 3 chairs, 4 chairs, 1 plus 1, 2, 3, 4, and you move it to an abstract form. I showed you 3 bananas and 1 orange. You know you cannot say it's 4 oranges. You know you cannot say it's 4 bananas, because it's really not there. You cannot count 4 bananas. You cannot grasp 4 bananas or 4 oranges. But then you change what? The abstract concept that you put all the fruits together into a collection. So it may look very simple, but it's deceptively simple. This is how we learn. First, we had to count 1 book, 2 books, then I would count this book, this book, this book, 4. I have 4 in the realms of mediumship. But now I can count all the books of the André Luiz collection, Life in the Spiritual World, and say I have, 30 of them, including the copies. Right? So you move on. This is how you learn. And then I put that in, and you say, okay, right, did I come to the right place? It's a Saturday, come on. And you do the math, you get the 68, and so on. Then I give you this, and you look at it, it's a little scary, but eventually you do the math again. But you notice that I'm just making it what? More and more what? Complex? This was our journey from monad to spirit. We just kept piling up one concept upon another. Now I get to this point, and you get a little annoyed at me, and then I get here. So what do I want to prove with this? I don't want you to think of math. What I want to show is that some of us are here. We died right here. And even that one we had to kind of, use our hands. It's not a problem. Some of us are here. Others are all the way here. But the point is, we will all get to this one day. We'll all get to this expression, know how to evaluate it. This is how we put the concepts together. So if I show this to a mathematician, he will go and say, oh yeah, 0. I won't even think about it. And you're going to look, what? Yeah, it's 0, by the way. Right? If you show it not to a mathematician, but let's say a physicist, you go say, I got 22. And so on. And keep going. But it's not the answer that I'm looking for here. What I want you to understand is that these are concepts that we are piling up. So most of us are, in one particular level of our evolution, but maybe some of us in some ways have like 1 foot ahead of the others. In another aspect, we have 1 foot behind everybody else, and so on. But that we all get, let's say if this were the concept of perfection, be perfect, we will also get to this one. Okay, this is what and the math, because it scares, it calls your attention. And that's what I wanted, to call your attention. So now let's talk about the applications. So boring until now. Let's see if we can do something intelligent with all this, right? So remember what I said to you, forget about everything else and remember only one thing, that you can mold, you can shape the universal cosmic fluid. So how is our physical bodies put together? Some of you are going to say, oh yes, I read that it's our perispirit that is the original copy and that makes the physical body. And that is true. Then I'm going to ask you, how is the physical body, the spiritual body or perispirit put together? So remember that I said we can shape, we can mold the universal cosmic fluid. We spirits, we will over. And I'm going to use the word will over, the phrasal verb will over, because I don't have a better verb. Because if I say shape, you will think that it's like clay. If I say I construct, you will think it's like a mathematical model. And it's not, because it's imponderable. It's all-pervading, the fluid. But the spirit wills over that fluid and builds the perispirit from the animated matter combined with the vital fluid, the inanimated matter with the vital fluid. Wills over. Then you're going to say, all right, so why did I have to go through the excruciating detail of the math? Because if I am here, don't you think I know a little more to will over the universal cosmic fluid and build a better perispirit than if I were here? So the more I know, the more I have progressed, the more organized, not beautiful, the more organized, the healthier, actually, more organized, the healthier that perispirit is going to be. And as a consequence, because it's now the perispirit that produces the physical body, the healthier, the more organized, the better will that physical body be. Okay? So then, in the applications, I just picked a few of them. I have actually phenomena of obsessions, okay? Phenomena of fixation, any interference, spiritual, that we suffer or that we produce, okay? Mediumistic phenomena, all of this, catalepsy, right? All of this are simply manifestations of our willing over the universal cosmic fluid. So I just picked a few of them. Here, the perispirit, or spiritual body, or also look, fluidic body of the spirit, is the most important products, one of the most of the cosmic fluid. We transform the UCF to create that perispirit. Okay? But the perispirit, this is the interesting thing. All of us here, men, women alike, it doesn't matter, children, adults, we have all the same physical body. It has to be put together in the same way. You're going to say, oh, but I have I have blonde hair, I have dark hair. I'm not talking about the little details, the variations. But the combination of that physical body is the same. The same matter that you made yours, I used to make mine. So we all do all these together. But when we talk about our perispirit or spiritual body, we can put it together according to our level of development, our level of progress. Remember the math thing? So the more I know, the better my perispirit will be. Okay? So the spirit is going to utilize the environment in which it's progressing to create both the spiritual body or perispirit and the physical body. And we'll use whatever it knows from that journey it has taken up to that point. You cannot teach what you haven't learned, and you cannot build what you haven't learned how to manipulate, basically. So I cannot make a better spirit than the one I have at the moment, because I haven't learned more to will over that universal cosmic fluid, to manipulate that, let's say, for lack of a better word, universal clay into a better statue. All right? So the moral progress is the determinant on how we mold, shape, will over the universal cosmic fluid. So the nature of the fluidic body or the perispiritic envelope is in direct proportion to it, of course. So the consequences that we see are the ones we're going to see right now. Okay? In the same world, let's say we're talking about Earth, right? All the incarnate beings, they have all the same constitution, basically. We start from the same building blocks of matter. My physical body, like I said, is built from the same physical body that everybody else in this room. It's not special. But if in this room there is someone who is much more evolved than I am, that person's perispirit will be much more evolved. And so it's not applicable to the spiritual bodies or fluidic bodies or perispirits. So imagine about the superior spirits, what they can will, how they can will over the universal cosmic fluid, and what type of bodies they can will over. That's why they are usually represented as halos of light, or as these angelical beings, because these are the only things that we have in our vocabulary that allows us to get a glimpse of what they truly represent, and a very bad glimpse at it, I must add. Okay. Now, when we are incipient, we are novices, we are beginning, we cannot go to places that are higher worlds, because we don't know how to manipulate the universal cosmic fluid to reach those places. This is why superior spirits can come down to earth, can come to help us, assist us, because they have already gone through this stage. They know how to manipulate, but not the ones that are beginning. We can never jump ahead. We can never try to skip a class. We can go back and take the class again, or go back and assist those who are behind us. But we cannot teach our teachers. That's what it's saying here, basically. When we talk about a perispirit, we always think about a physical body, in a body actually, in the spiritual realm. And it's actually not like this. I am Julio here, the physical Julio, and then here there is the perispiritual Julio, and then there's the spirit Julio. All right? It's not a nested doll like a Russian doll, one inside the other. Again, remember the idea of a continuum. The denser this envelope is, okay, the more difficult it is for my spirit to connect to it. So there are many little spiritual bodies all interconnected. It's not just only one. So instead of saying there are many perispirits or spiritual bodies, we say that there are many layers to our perispirit. All right? So it's like this, it's like I'm moving very fast, like the Flash, and you see, the little instances of me. But the truth is, here would be the physical me, and that would be, let's say, the spiritual me, and then you have all these layers in between that would be my perispirit. Each one, as I move from spirit to body, more and more dense, or if I move from body to spirit, less and less dense, more and more ethereal. Okay? And these continuum of structures is what defines who I am. This is what you are. This is what we all are. Pinocchios. Not in the sense of liars, all right? Let's put it in the constructive way. This is a Spiritist talk, okay? It's in the sense that he was built of wood. We are built of matter. He wants to be a real boy. We want to be an angel. We want to rise to plenitude. There's a lot of psychology hidden behind it. He was an inanimate wooden toy when it started. We started as a monad. Not inanimate, because inanimate is only for matter, but in the sense of intelligence, we didn't have much, right? We were only gathering information. We're not even processing it yet. He had Jiminy Cricket as the conscience, and we have our spirit. Then we go with spirit to perispirit. We have the birth of our conscience and our free will. And what is the future? Well, he becomes a real boy only when he understands the duties that comes with that gift. That is not just a matter of willing for it. He has to deserve it. He has to do something to be deserving of it. And we have to do something to be deserving of reaching plenitude. So just saying, oh, I would love to be an angelical being. Yeah, you can sit there until the universe will come to an end, if you ever do that. But you will never reach if you do not apply yourselves, because it is a progress and is a journey that only we can take, each one of us separately. Right? You see the strings that hold the marionette? That's our perispirit. That's the analogy, the equivalence. So now, if I pull the strings, what happens? That little static, immovable picture or figure moves, right? Becomes alive. So we need to understand this. Think about it. If I have only one string pulling my arm here, all I can do is this with my arm, right? Or maybe do like this. But I cannot go like this with my fingers. But now imagine that instead of only one string, I have one here, one on my elbow, one at each knuckle, one at the end of each. I become a lot more what? Flexible, right? This is how the perispirit, in a very crude way, operates. It's this multitude of strings, but instead of pulling at an arm or at a joint or at a knuckle, it pulls at every atom, at every molecule in our bodies. So imagine the range of mobility that we get. This is how we first build our perispirit, by willing over the universal cosmic fluid, and that perispirit now controls this marionette, so we can be a good tool for our learning, the learning of the spirit, which is what really counts. Okay? So we have all these strings that is tugging and pulling on all the energy fields, all the fields that produce this body from the universal cosmic fluid, making it move, making it dynamic, making it progress. The information flows from the spirit that issues the commands all the way to the strings that manipulate the physical body. And the physical body gathers information and sends them back to the spirit, finishing the cycle. Okay? So in this fashion, spirit commands the structures, and the structures impose the senses on the spirit. Good? Why is this important? Because when we talk about diseases, when we talk about a lot of problems we have in our lives, we forget that the diseases are in our spirit. And all we can do is change. All we need to do is to change our habits. By changing our habits, we may be able to will over, still in this form, still in this life, over the universal cosmic fluid and produce a better body. Now, some of you are going to say, oh, but I knew this person, this and that, the individual was very good and eventually died of this or that disease. Well, we have to be careful, because let us say, for instance, situation one, that I'm sick. I am Julio, physical body. I'm sick. And I will over. If there is still vital fluid in my body, enough vital fluid, I may already get the cure in this life. If not, when I go back to the spiritual realm, I will get the cure because my spirit has been cured, not my physical body. But sometimes, now scenario number 2, sometimes what happens is that I will over my physical body and I even deserve the cure, but there isn't enough vital fluid left in my physical body for me to get the cure for that disease right now here in the physical realm. So then I may die of that disease or complications of some other thing, but as I go back to the spiritual realm, I no longer have that disease imprinted on my perispirit, because I have learned how to build a better perispirit that will not develop that disease. Not because we build better perispirits, but because we learn how to avoid certain things that lead to those malformations. Okay? This is what is so important about the fluids. And we can do this with everything in our lives. Process of obsession, process of fascination, process of subjugation, the worst case scenario, right? The mediumship phenomenon, all of that are intimately connected to the universal cosmic fluid. And the more we evolve, the more we know how to will over it and mold it, shape it into better forms. Okay? This is what I had to present to you. I had a few other things just in case if you have questions. I have some other slides, but it ends right here. And thank you very much. I know it's a Saturday evening, and I'm open to questions if you have any.
Thank you, Julio, for this beautiful explanation and how it connects to us and reminding ourselves that we are in this moment, closing this trimester that we have been discussing on the theme of education at home. And how important this is for us, right? Getting to know ourselves, getting to know where we came from, as we talked about it many, many times here, and more specifically tonight, our environment, right? How we are in control of ourselves, of our physical bodies, reaping the consequences perhaps of what we have done in the past. So we thank you for this because it truly helps us in this idea of educating ourselves, not only here, but at home as well. So let us open about 10 minutes or so for questions. We would like to make sure that we ask questions or in accordance to the topic, obviously, so we can enlighten one another and hopefully have Julie here answer the question. And remember that there's no crazy question. There's nothing really that sometimes we think that should I really ask? Ask. Obviously, something that is in conjunction with the talk. So, Laura, please.
First, I really want to thank you so much for sharing so generously your thoughts and ideas with us, because for me it just opened up a whole new realm and world of ideas. So thank you. But my question is, you said that through our will we can learn to manipulate or modify and actually change diseases. So where do we learn that?
We learn by better ourselves, by
know, but
improving.
Where do you learn that?
Yes. So, for instance, when we look at all our actions in life, right, and we start paying attention to the consequences of each action, because have you noticed that most of us, myself included, we live life in the autopilot. We get out of bed. We were in the autopilot, and we put in a different autopilot, and we start our day. If I ask you what you had for breakfast, most people won't even remember.
I remember.
All right? Or if I ask you, which route do you take to go to work or to go to the bakery, the people won't remember, because we do things so automatically. Sometimes we insult, sometimes we do things to other people, even to ourselves, without even realizing there was no malice associated to it. We just don't pay attention. As we become more and more aware of our actions, our thoughts, and our words, we improve ourselves by avoiding certain pitfalls, and with that, we improve the true us, which is the spirit.
Thank you. And I know, this is a quick question. So we were monads, right? Are they still in us?
No, it's not that they are in us. we're still the same thing that we with how we started. The difference that we have evolved. So we, at our level, do not call ourselves monads. We just give ourselves a different name.
But
that's all.
okay.
It's just a name, basically. Yeah, it's not. For instance, I was born without one arm and now I have two. It just continues. Okay, and we change the name. That's all.
Thank you.
Talking to him?
Yes.
With the marionette and the strings, when you said if I had one string I could only do this, and if I have multiple strings I do a lot more, does that concept of flexibility apply to the personality and the human nature, that the more flexible, the less rigid one is? There's a certain amount of more evolution?
That is more of the moral progress. It's not necessarily of the manipulation of the universal cosmic fluid. That is in the spirit. Everything we do, say, and think is actually coming from the spirit. When we say, we make the sound, so we make the air vibrate. When we think, we make the universal cosmic fluid vibrate, because it's energy and it's part of matter as well. It's a form of matter. But all that starts with the spirit. They are manifestations. So the good choices we make in life and the behavioral disturbances we have are in the spirit. They are manifestations. When they happen, are just consequences in more towards the universal cosmic fluid.
When I try to change my consciousness, it can be in a big step that I can even divide, like from dormant to more awakened. But less than that, much more subtly. When I do daily, sometimes I feel I'm more conscious, more aware what I'm doing with the universal cosmic fluid.
Okay.
I am here incarnated, and I change daily or during the day my consciousness. I'm more aware one day more than the others for some reason.
Mm-hmm. Or for
Am I
instance,
constantly manipulating, molding this universe, interacting with this universal cosmic fluid?
Yes.
That's what you say.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Everything we do, we always have this view of the universe. That's why I introduced the Heisenberg principle. It wasn't out of nothing or just to show off physics. It's not that. It's this idea that we have this vision that the universe is out there and I'm here. And if I don't do anything and I turn my back to the universe continues its own way and I continue mine. It's not that. I am the universe and the universe is me. We are in it together. These are all manifestations. And anything I do is my willing over that universe, which is part of the universal cosmic fluid. So we are immersed in it whether we like or not. So when we become more aware, we are interacting more, and let's put it this way, perhaps more progressively, more constructively with that universal cosmic fluid. Universal cosmic fluid has no polarity. There's no good or bad. But for instance, if I have sympathy for her and antipathy for her, when I approach her, I mold this universal cosmic fluid into, let's say, a breeze. So she feels the empathy. When I approach her, there is the antipathy, there is this aggravation, and she might not even have the same sentiments for me, the same feelings for me, but she senses it because I'm perturbing that universal cosmic fluid, and she is part of it, so she will sense it, like it or not. And if you have mediumship, ostensive mediumship, then that sensation is heightened. But we all are, in that sense, like Kardec says very well, we all are mediums, that we interact with the spiritual world. So we're all going to...
Can I ask a question? So I'll pass to you at the end of the soon. So would you elaborate a little bit about responsibility on all this?
Responsibility is an interesting word. You see, when we say responsibility, we don't really understand what it truly means. It's the same thing with the word freedom. It's the same thing with the word love and a lot of other things. Whenever we say responsibility, the first thing that comes to your mind is, I have to pay the price for everything I do. That's not it. That is not it. It's not paying the price for what we do, good or bad. It has nothing to do, because if I were to think of it this way, it would mean that there is good decisions and bad decisions. And the truth is, there are no good or bad decisions. There are decisions. The difference is, the responsibility is owning up to the decisions. For instance, not saying, no, I didn't do it. Especially, when we're kids and we break a vase at home, or we do something that we know our parents are not going to be very happy about, right? And we say, no, I didn't do it. It's the Bart Simpson syndrome. I didn't do it, right? This is the true responsibility. Because what happens is, if you don't own up to what you do, then you're going to say, oh, you're going to be punished. No, you don't. But you stall your progress. That's the thing. You stall your progress. Because let's say, for instance, that you commit a particular action that hurts someone, or sometimes very badly. If that person forgives the action, even you, that person moves forward. That person doesn't need your forgiveness, or you're going to her or him and say, oh, I'm sorry. That person continues to move forward. So this is responsibility, owning up to what we do, the choices we make, and understanding that there is no good or bad. We have a very negative way of looking at our choices. We say, oh, if I had done this in my life, if I had done the other. You can only say that today because you have taken one of the paths and realized that it didn't come out the way you planned, you expected.
Thank you.
Going back a little bit about the antipathy and sympathy that you can feel, how practically we Spiritists, and I think some people are not Spiritists, but they are sensitive as well, what would be your advice when we are in a situation in life when you feel this, and you don't have to be a medium, like, profess the Spiritist doctrine, but you are sensitive and you feel it. What would you recommend?
It's a very good question. So be careful with the answer.
You can't put your wish for.
Here's the thing. You're not going to start turning on your radar, say, oh, I have sympathy for her and sympathy for her and the other, or start grading half a sympathy or because this is judgmental. And then you're going around passing judgment, thinking that you are better than everybody else. Or, and we all do this in a way or another, but we have to be very careful. What you have to ask yourself is, why are you unhappy in that place? So, for instance, instead of thinking, oh, I went to a very raucous party last night in a bar and everybody was drinking, but out of control. It's not that drinking when, at a wedding and you take a sip of wine, or no, things that are out of control. You should ask yourself, not instead of passing judgment about the others, you should say, why did I come here? What was I looking for that made me come here? Because nobody, forced me. So in this case, we have to be careful. Now, there are, I agree, situations where you are stuck with the individual. Let's say in an office where you work.
At work, yeah.
Look, you try to talk to the individual. You try to approach the person, not on the problem. You try to pull the individual towards things that individual likes to do and do well. Because maybe by calling attention of that individual to things that he or she does well, he or she will stop spending time on the bad ones. Yeah. But sometimes you can't do it because the individual doesn't want it, then you ignore. You ignore, because the most important thing we have in our lives is our lives. When we go back, nobody wants to know how much of a martyr we were. They are going to ask us, have you done anything to improve yourself? And if it's, oh, I didn't because, Mr. So-and-so and Mrs. So-and-so was next to me in the office. So, well, this is whining. and I don't have any cheese to go with that wine. Okay? I just want to know, what have you done to improve yourself? No, it's fine. I'm all right.
Let's talk about Jesus.
Okay.
And the universal cosmic fluid. So we can say Jesus, of course, is a very evolved, perfect spirit, right?
Yes.
Can we say somehow when he performed his miracles, that are things that we can't explain, right? When he transformed the water in wine.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the will over the universal cosmic fluid?
Yes, that's the will of over the cosmic fluid. Jesus, at the time he visited us, being a perfect spirit, and at that point perfected spirit, a spirit that had already reached its perfection, could do things, see things, will over things we had no even not a single idea existed. So the resurrection of Lazarus, for instance, he was catatonic, so he wasn't dead, because once it's dead, not even Jesus will bring that back to life. So in that sense, there are no miracles. It's just certain things that we are not aware, but he was. The transubstantiation is not that there is actually a substance that gets modified into another, but it's a substance that gets, in the sense that, the water turned red into wine. No, but what you needed to have at that moment was placed in that water. In the same way that if you drink the water, the fluidified water here, when you take the passes, there's not just water there. So in that sense, there is a transubstantiation. And this transubstantiation that happens to the fluidified, the fluidic water that we give at the end of passes, is the same thing. Is this collective will over the universal cosmic fluid, with the assistance of all the spiritual benefactors that are here, that help us on top of everything. Passes, the same thing. There are 3 types of energies that can be transmitted. You can have the energy from us, the magnetism that comes from the physical, the pass giver. Okay? Then you can have, that one comes from the physical body of the pass giver. Well, it comes perispirit to perispirit, but the fluid, the willing over, comes from the physical body. Then you have the spiritual bodies, the spiritual pass, which comes from the spiritual benefactors straight to the person receiving the pass. And then there is the combination where the mentors send the energy to the pass giver, and the pass giver mixes that energy with the spiritual one and gives a mixed pass. Also, all 3 are manipulations of the universal cosmic fluid. They all happen at that level.
We'll go ahead and do less questions.
This is fast.
It's the flash question.
Yeah. The way you just described that, is that simultaneous?
In what sense?
Wait, in one sense?
So...
Simultaneous, like it's all, like you just described 3 different...
Okay, everybody knows where she lives, because you're going to have homework. Okay? Okay? So the concept of time, so when you say simultaneous, it's what we think.
Sorry, I didn't mean to ask that question.
Okay?
Okay, I take it back.
So you all know where she lives. Now you guys have to do homework. Okay, you have to think about the concept of time. What is the concept of time here in our planet at our level? And the concept of time all the way, for instance, for, let's say, much more highly evolved spirits. They exist they exist outside the concept of time, our concept of time.
Thank you.
Julio, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
On behalf of the Spirit Society of Baltimore. Thank you so much. We dare not even say anything because enough has been said already. But what we would like to invite you to is we will not be having our actual passes tonight, but we will be doing a spiritual passes. So what that basically means is that whether or not we actually have our physical incarnate practitioners here before you doing the hand movements, we have the specialized spirits that come that are in charge of our passes. So they will be in unison with our thought, showering over us the same amount of utilization of this universal cosmic fluid as we have just learned so much about tonight, in depth, and will continue learning. So join me in this moment of prayer, this moment of utilizing our ability to will over our emotion, our mind, our thoughts. And close your eyes with me now. And let us change our vibration to an even higher one, allowing the spirit mentors, our individual mentors, to shower blessings over us that we can feel, starting from the tops of our heads, pouring over each vital center or chakra, bringing them back to balance and harmony, forgetting about any stressors, worries, thinking only about this peaceful moment. Find yourself in a comfortable position and envision yourself feeling completely tranquil in this moment. And imagine your mentor full of light, joy, serenity. Come around you and offer you this warm, involving you with this light, allowing you this moment of peace and rejuvenation. And allow yourself to quench your thirst for inner peace, for inner enlightenment, for inner joy. Being reminded that we are children of God, created to love, to grow, and to be happy. We give great thanks to our Creator, our loving model and guide and governor, Jesus. Symbolizing until today and always eternal love, compassion, and charity. May we seek to emulate such behavior in our day-to-day lives and with ourselves. May we leave here tonight feeling renewed, rejuvenated, encouraged, and hopeful. And may this idea be spread out across this vast globe, inspiring all peoples from all walks of life to march on despite any struggles they are facing. We thank you, and so be it. So we are going to be passing out the spiritually magnetized water